Over 3 nights in December 1980, strange moving lights drifted through the trees of Rendlesham Forest, England. When personnel from 2 nearby US air bases went out to investigate, they were unwittingly thrust into one of the most compelling and controversial episodes in UFO history. The abundance of credible witnesses, the presence of physical evidence, and the frequency and duration of contact make it nearly impossible to deny that something extraordinary happened in Rendlesham Forest, even while the US and British governments maintain otherwise. In the early hours of December 26, 1980, Airman First Class John Burroughs was guarding the gate to Woodbridge Air Base, one of 2 twin American air bases in Suffolk, England. In the dark of the night, Burroughs saw a pair of flashing colored lights descend into Rendlesham Forest, a nearby pine plantation, and appear to move around between the trees. Burroughs alerted Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston, who, along with Airman First Class Edward Cabanzag, came out to see the lights for himself. When Penniston received word that several local control towers had tracked an unknown object over Woodbridge Air Base, he took Burroughs and Cabanzag into the woods to investigate. Approximately half a mile into the plantation, the patrol could see white, blue, red, and yellow lights moving through the trees. They were soon joined by Master Sergeant J.D. Chandler, who also witnessed the lights. After the men lost radio functionality, Chandler and Cabanzag decided to stay behind to relay messages back to the base, while Burroughs and Penniston pressed on towards the source of the lights. What Burroughs and Penniston experienced next was like a transformation of reality itself. Walking became difficult, like wading through deep water, and they felt an electric charge in the air. When they reached an illuminated clearing, they were greeted with a bright flash of light that transformed into a metallic triangular craft. Burroughs was engulfed in a vertical beam of light that he believes may have somehow removed him from that time and space. The triangular craft measured about 3 meters in all directions, and either hovered over the ground or rested on unseen landing gear. It had a row of blue lights on the side and a white light on top. The object was smooth to the touch, like glass, save for a few roughly textured symbols that Penniston likened to Egyptian hieroglyphs. After he touched the object, the white light on top flared up until he removed his hand. He later claimed that a lengthy series of 1s and 0s flashed in his head at this time, and remained in memory until he wrote them all down. After an estimated 45 minutes, the object lifted off the ground and maneuvered vertically between the branches until it cleared the top of the trees and shot off into the night sky. Burroughs then regained consciousness, having no recollection of Penniston examining the craft. The men were in a state of disbelief, but they could not deny what had happened to them. There were 3 distinct and evenly spaced indentations in the hard frozen ground where they'd seen the object, and many of the branches overhanging the apparent landing site had broken off of the trees. They later discovered that personnel from another unit had also seen and encountered strange lights in the forest that night. More startlingly, when they finally rendezvoused with Chandler and Cabanzag, Burroughs and Penniston discovered that their watches were running 45 minutes behind. Later that morning, the base authorities ordered Burroughs and Penniston to return to the site with several other officers. The police also launched an investigation. Together they took photos and measurements, and Penniston took a plaster mold of the 3 indentations. One of the officers later did the same. Things then took a conspiratorial turn. It was discovered that no photos could be returned from development on the grounds that they had all come out cloudy. When Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt arrived on duty around 5 a.m. that morning, he discovered that the only 2 official incident reports had been removed from the base's files and classified secret, all without his knowledge or permission. Declassified documents have since revealed that the reports were seized and given over to the most senior U.S. Air Force officer in Europe. Just when it seemed like the investigation had come to a standstill, the UFO returned. When Holt caught word of this on the night of the 27th, he immediately put together a search team to explore the forest. One of the men was armed with a Geiger counter, and Holt brought along a handheld tape recorder that he used to log his observations. Holt took his team to the alleged landing site and studied the indentations. His Geiger counter operator reported that all 3 indentations were irradiated, as was the center of the triangular pattern they created. Looking through a night vision scope, Holt could also see distinct energy reflections off the surrounding trees and ground. Around the same time, Burroughs returned to duty and rendezvoused with Holt and his team. As the men were searching the landing site, they were alerted by a chorus of distressing calls from the animals on a nearby farm. Soon after, the men noticed a flashing red light approximately half a mile from their position. Its appearance coincided with the settling of what Halt described as a deathly calm over the area and over the previously hysterical animals. As the light drifted closer, it turned from red to yellow. At this point, the men could see that it was in the shape of a human eye, and that it had a dark, hollow-looking center that they likened to a pupil. It even appeared to wink from time to time, and looked as though it were dripping molten metal. Another light appeared nearby, and the eye-shaped object moved from side to side between the trees. It broke into 5 separate white objects that quickly vanished from sight. The men then left the forest and crossed 2 neighboring fields. They followed a flashing red light north until seeing 2 half-moon-shaped objects dancing around in the sky before turning into full circles. They remained in sight for a total of an hour or more. Another object appeared to the south and fired a pencil-thin beam of light to the ground before the men's feet. Burroughs was once again enveloped in an explosion of light, and another team member witnessed him disappear for several minutes before returning in place. Soon after Halt called his team back to base, the object appeared over Woodbridge in highly sensitive airspace and fired beams of light down into the base with absolute impunity. It vanished soon after. A few days after their sighting, 5 of the men involved, including Penniston, Burroughs, Cabanzag, and Chandler, were debriefed and asked to sign sworn statements describing what they saw. Many claim they were given pre-prepared statements that omitted many of the most crucial details, and that they were asked to sign them under extreme duress. Halt later wrote that drugs like sodium pentothal, a truth serum, were used on the men, and that their memories were deliberately tampered with using hypnotic techniques. All 5 men were told that the incident was classified, and that they would refrain from discussing it at the base. In spite of these warnings, many of the witnesses, including Penniston, Burroughs, Cabanzag, and Halt, have gone public with their stories. Most of them have even accused the US government of withholding information on the UFO phenomenon, and of trying to cover up the Rendlesham Forest incident. Beginning in 2011, Penniston and Burroughs began collaborating with Nick Pope, former head of the British Ministry of Defence's UFO project. Pope was able to produce a declassified US Air Force document detailing that some US Air Force wing commanders were briefed on the UFO phenomenon. When Burroughs and Penniston brought this document to their former wing commander, he admitted that he too had been briefed on the phenomenon, and that he had known about it at the time of the incident. Other details from the nights in question were also revealed in the following years. Penniston underwent regressive hypnosis in an attempt to recover forgotten memories from his encounter with the landed craft. He is convinced that he met several humanoid beings that night who told him that they were traveling back in time from humanity's future. More controversially, another alleged witness by the name of Larry Warren stepped forward with his own contribution to the Rendlesham Forest narrative, which included an encounter between the humanoid UFOnauts and some high-ranking military personnel. His story, however, is uncorroborated by any other witnesses, and even conflicts with elements of other accounts. Although frequently touted as the most compelling on record, the Rendlesham Forest incident is not without detractors. Nearly every detail of the case has been called into doubt. Popular UFO debunkers such as Chris French have attributed the witnesses' anomalous sightings variously to delusions, meteors, pranksters, and most famously, a nearby lighthouse. The indentations at the landing site have been explained as rabbit holes, and the radiation readings have been dismissed as insignificant. Several notable proponents of the case, however, continue to insist that such unremarkable stimuli could not possibly have given rise to the witnesses' rather extraordinary accounts. Accepting a few dubious claims, the core of the Rendlesham Forest case rests on unshakable evidence. The abundance of witnesses, the duration of their sightings, the appearance of the objects on radar, and the presence of tangible traces in the environment make it difficult to doubt the validity of the alleged sightings. And as the witnesses and their most vocal supporters continue to push the US and British governments to reveal their knowledge of this historic case, it seems more and more likely that the Rendlesham Forest incident will prove to be a critical pillar of public disclosure, whatever that may reveal about the identity of the mysterious visitors.